Friends, I was supposed to talk to the people who are part of the discussion, but now the media persons have come between and the wall is created. It's really heartening to see that a young artist has become a young activist. And he has brought together Dalits, Adivasis, minorities and Gandhians to Ambedkarites in this struggle to save earth, to save rivers, to save water. So it's not a negative position that we are taking, otherwise tomorrow they will blame me and all that, oh, now you again come to oppose something. No, we have come to save something. And it's so heartening also that there are so many youngsters who are knowledgeable about the details of the environmental legal regime, are also taking a position along with the senior persons who have been in these battles like Nagesh Hegedeji. And Naganna are also here to represent the Dalits, Adivasis, all of those who are the natural resource-based communities, and those are the ones who have saved whatever natural ecosystems we have around us to breathe oxygen and to drink pure water till today. I'm also happy that ex-minister Lalitaji, so Gandhians, Ambedkarites and socialists are also come together. It's really a serious issue, and we are not here to represent any political party, but to represent Kaveri herself. It is really necessary today to talk about the rivers and whether they are living or dying. You won't believe that even Narmada, where the slogan since day one has been Narmada Bachao, Mano Bachao, we could save 50,000 families from getting thrown out, and they have got rehabilitation, and we are fighting the battle for the remaining Adivasis, Dalits, fish workers, potters, artisans and also others. But having said this, this is also a special situation where the civil society organizations and people who are the real civilized ones, who are not in that Golbanda nexus of contractors, politicians and also investors, whether they are local or global. That's what Nagesh mentioned about. And we all witness this happening everywhere. And hence project planning has become an exercise of exploiting nature at the cost of nature and people both. And that is the issue which a young, sensitive and sensible artist like Chetan ji has raised from the battleground of people's movement, that is Karnataka. Kaveri has also become a battleground since decades, but that is the conflict between the state and the state. Here is the conflict between the state and its people. And the people also have the right to question state and challenge anything wrong that they do, whether it is imposition of pro-corporate laws against farmers or repeal of 29 laws in favor of shramiks. Here is an issue where Kaveri is crying halt. And that is because this river, her name itself says that she has been very, very generous in saving life, not just her river basin, but giving life through the water that she supplies to anyone and everyone. And that Kaveri is today has become a calling river, no water body and nothing else. It is very essential to see whether Kaveri has the environmental flows remaining for herself and for the catchment and the river basin based natural ecosystem. If not, the river will not survive. The project may go up, but the river water flows will go down. This is exactly what has happened in Narmada. Sardar Sarovar height has gone up to the full level, but the water level has gone down and down and down. I just told the Gujarat organizations in Ahmedabad and they were shocked. But I tell you that in this Mekedatu, where it is not just a place for tourism, but it's place where the Adivasis, the Iruligas are staying, and a place which has bountiful natural resources, due to which the Tamil Nadu can demand and the Karnataka can demand and the Puducherry and Kerala also can claim their right as riparian states. But who is looking at what is happening to the catchment of Kaveri? Who is looking at what is happening to each of the dams, and not just the dam affected people but also to the beneficiary areas? When the water is drawn to a city, a silicon city like Bengaluru, 95 kilometers away, what is the real distribution of water? Is it just or unjust? That also needs to be looked into. Yesterday I was in Vijayapur with 20 to 25% of population, not as much as Mumbai, which is 60%, living in slums. Who is the water flowing for? That also needs to be looked into. Whether Bengaluru has the equitable distribution of water is a question which is as important as whether a dam that will be a final nail on the Kaveri's environmental flows, Mekedatu, is really going to be sustainable. So it is the equitability and sustainability of any project that will need to be proved before the project gets clearance and sanctions and all kinds of concessions. That is not yet happening in case of Mekedatu. What is rising as a voice is a political voice, and they have a right to raise their voices. But when the Dalits, Adivasis, minorities, the nature-based communities are raising voice, and the people who are sensitive enough to climate change, to the collapse of the ecosystems, and to the people dying because of no supply of oxygen, they are the ones from Bengaluru city who have joined all these so-called oppressed communities, is something which only can save earth and save rivers. As it is said, it is not the conventions in Paris, Copenhagen or Glasgow. As Greta Thunberg said it immediately after the speeches of the heads of the nation states, that all that is said is blah blah blah. She has blasted the importance of these kinds of international global conventions, whether it is COP26 or anything else. Because when their climate change is discussed, here more and more projects are energy intensive projects. The discussion about how much of cement, how much of soil, how much of water will be required to build a dam does not come into the picture before the common people at all. I have not looked into the DPR, but I know that that clearance was also given after the TOR was sanctioned by the EAC with certain conditions. One will have to look into whether the conditions are fulfilled or not. Without that, no political party, at least not Congress, that believes in Gandhi, that had once raised the issues such as the Silent Valley project issue in Kerala, they cannot just take a position without looking into the scientific basis and the best possible assessments of costs and benefits. Now I know that The benefit cost ratios are calculated as financial rates of return. And that is not what the world needs today. When 1500 scientists are warning us that humanity will come to an end, not just the reserves of coal or the Himalayan ice that is melting. We have to be careful about how to manage our resources. The management of resources is not management of commodities. These are the life support of all of us, and especially those who cannot buy a bottled water at the cost of 80 to 20 rupees and drink that. They are the ones who should get primacy in water management, distribution and utilization. And hence, the elitist environmentalists only cannot really raise this issue. It was Mahamanav Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar who fought the battle on the Mahad Talab and said that the local people must get the first right to the water in the talab. Today what is happening? What is happening to the talabs? You have 35,000 lakes in Karnataka and at least 90 to 100 in Bangalore. The High Court had to intervene and say that save each of the lakes. Why? This decentralized management of water will not only save water but also save rivers. Unless there is a catchment area, not treatment, but catchment area management, there will be no flows flowing into the rivers. This is exactly what is happening in every single river. There is illegal sand mining. There is all kinds of buildings and constructions within the floodplains. Everything against the rules and regulations drawn whether by Central Water Commission or Ministry of Environment, Forest, Wildlife and now added climate change. Now this is proving that such mega projects worth 9,000 crores or Sardar Sarovar worth 60,000 crores are not giving the benefits that are claimed. And hence at the cost of nature and people who have lived simple lifestyles, who have not really extracted or drawn waters from the river and filled in the bottles and sold those, they are the ones who will lose their socio-cultural, economic and ecological milieu that comes from the Kaveri Basin. This is what is being questioned by you all, and I salute to you, Chetan and all of you, that you are raising this issue. Otherwise we will be called, and we are called, as anti-nationals, anti-development and eco-fundamentalists. Remember what Prime Minister Modi said on 26th of November in front of C.V. Ramanna, the Chief Justice of India, and all judges, that because I come from Gujarat, I give you the example of Sardar Sarovar. It is Andolan that stops it, that questions it, and the judges hesitate to give judgments. He accused the judiciary as well. But do the judges also know the reality of the dams, whether it is the Bull Periyar or the Sardar Sarovar? The fact of life is that the benefits have not come true, and Maharashtra and Madhya Pradesh are also fighting the battles with Gujarat and gone into arbitration to get money instead of electricity. That was the only benefit they were to get. So this not being known, that the drought affected areas where the waters were to reach, Kutch, there is no minor canal network built till today. And Prime Minister said in his speech that look, now there is agro produce that is exported from Kutch. And if the drinking water is not supplied as much as it was to be. So it is the same thing that can happen to Mekedatu also. Because here there is no proper assessment either of the catchment or of the command. Now if the cities command all water resources that are snatched away from the huge, through the huge aqueducts or the huge lift irrigations or through the dams of the major rivers at whatever cost, that needs to be looked into. And this is the time when one can really take a real scientific position. What is done politically is mostly unscientific. It is the benefit of many beneficiaries whose names are not declared when they begin with the politics on any development project. The infrastructure projects at large are causing such a situation in many parts of this country that they are and we are facing drought and flood. You look at the flood situation in Maharashtra, the districts of Raigad, Kolhapur, Sangli, Satara, Ratnagiri have faced hugely destructive floods mainly because of the infrastructure projects. These infrastructure projects, which don't take into consideration the natural flows of water, really become the barriers and the flooding takes place. Now we have detailed reports on these districts with experts that our Jana Andolano ka Rashtriya Samanvaya NAPM has prepared, and we are going to release it within a few days. Friends, it is the same thing that is happening in every river with every dam. And this interstate conflict is not easily resolved by the tribunals. We know that when the Krishna conflict on Alamatti came into being, we studied the flood and we went to present before the tribunal, and they said, no, we cannot hear you because we hear only the state actors. This is a flaw, major flaw in the Interstate Water Dispute Act of 1956. And there are, after that, because these conflicts took place, whether it is on Bhakra Nangal or other dams, that the River Valley Guidelines came into being in 1983 when T.N. Session kind of person was in charge of the Ministry of Environment. Are those guidelines followed in the case of Kaveri? Is something that this whole group of organizations have to ask. Are we following and not violating Air Act and Water Act of 1974 and Environment Protection Act of 1986? As the youngsters like Meghna and others have raised the issue, are we really following the Environment Impact Assessment notifications of 1994 to 1990 till 2006? EIA 2020 have not yet come into being, and the youngsters have played a great role through Fridays for Future and all organizations. But when the Dalits and Adivasis stand up, they will certainly challenge not just one dam, but the development paradigm itself, and that is the need of the hour. This development paradigm of today is for urbanization and industrialization, and that is based on globalization, liberalization and privatization. So all the benefactors are urban, industrial, global corporates. But you know that the farmers include farm laborers, farmers include dairy workers, farmers include Adivasis living on the minor forest produce, and also fish workers. That is our definition of farmers. That is reflected in the bills that are before the parliament placed by us since 2018. But instead of that, when the 3 pro-corporate laws were imposed during lockdown, taking the benefit, not taking state governments into consultation or consideration, it was not just assault on the federal structure of India, it was an assault on the constitutional directive principles and the fundamental rights of us as citizens. And hence, that 1 year long struggle has won a major battle against corporatization, and this also can be one of the major battles to save all those who live on the natural resources. And that is why I salute you all. It is very necessary to see that one river after another is dying. You look at Yamuna, it has become Ganga drain. You look at your Vrishabhavati, and that has become a Ganga Nala. And you look at Satluj in Punjab, which I just visited, and it has become full of chemicals. All the effluents coming from the urban cities and effluents coming from the industries are directly thrown into river. No one is bothered about that. I will tell you, just 4 days back, the government officials of Madhya Pradesh came to Narmada to assess the organic farmers who belong to Narmada movement and said that we cannot give you organic farming certificate if you are using Narmada waters, because that is full of chemicals. And we know who has thrown water, effluents, who has thrown where, which tributary it has come through to Narmada. And this is what is happening in Satluj. This is what has happened in Periyar. Every single river is polluted, and that no one is bothered about. So if we want to save rivers, not only that we have to question the big dams on the major rivers, which really become barriers for the natural flows, and start looking for, and there are existing models of decentralized water management which will give the first primacy and the first benefit to the local communities, and then the longer distance communities, and then the longer distance communities, and Bengaluru may be having 1/3 of it as a part of the Kaveri basin. But if it is already taken 19 TMC for the overall drinking water supply itself, then how much can Bengaluru get at the cost of the farmers, laborers and the villagers? Yesterday I met an old farmer in Vijayapur and he said, "Sabko irrigation milna chahiye na." What is the plan? If it is to be equitable, it has to be decentralized land, water, forest management. Nela, Jala, Aranya. All the three resources need to be brought together. As a former commissioner of World Commission on Dams, when we studied the dams across the world, you look at the multi-stakeholder group with not just me as an activist, but the World Bank senior most official, the Chinese government official, and the Kader Asmal's colleague, the Nelson Mandela's colleague Kader Asmal, as presiding on the commission. What is it that we concluded? There were dam building companies like ABB and Cements and everyone, but the conclusion is that the big dams on big rivers are not the solution to the truly sustainable and equitable and just water management. And thousands of crores are being thrown into such mega projects. Today in lockdown, when 1,53,000 Dalit, Adivasis, contract laborers, the Shramik have committed suicide, we know who requires what and what should be our priority in spending even the financial resource. But here the financial resource is thrown into being. And if it is JBIC, the Japanese bilateral agency and the World Bank, the multilateral agencies, they are the money lenders. They want to lend money more and more and then control the resources, not only the resources but also the governance of our country. They are changing laws like the electricity bill. They are changing laws against the Shramik. They are changing laws against the farmers, and they want to really earn money along with Adani and Ambani. But who are the gainers of 1,000 crores and more per day? This is absolutely vulgar iniquity, and that iniquity is pushed through such kinds of projects which do not bother about equity and justice. And hence it is in violation of not just laws, not just notifications, but violation of the Constitution. And hence, remembering Baba Sahib is important. It is also important, as Nagarna said, to remember Gandhi. It is the Gandhi and Ambedkar who would have certainly come together and sat along with Shahid Bhagat Singh and Karl Marx and then drawn an alternative paradigm for development in the present kind of situation. But they are not amongst us, and none of us is Gandhi or Baba Sahib. But we certainly must remember that what kind of economy and what kind of politics we want that should get reflected is something that is to be said, not just questioned. And our positive statement, therefore, will certainly say that we want to save Kaveri, we want to save Arkanti, we want to save every tributary. Without that, the main river cannot be stopped. And when 3 petitions are pending in the Supreme Court, and the judiciary is one of the pillars of democracy, all of us believe. Every politician put hands on the constitution and take an oath. Then how can they come to a final conclusion, any of the political party, and really take out a yatra in favor of, must decide on people-to-people dialogue between Tamil Nadu and Karnataka people. They should not bypass people and do politics. It should be people's politics. Second thing is, when the High Court has already given a clear judgment for Karnataka, and every lake is to be saved, and district level committees are to be formed and taken the responsibility. That is the task which should be first completed. Third is the rain harvesting, rain water harvesting, whether it is rooftop or whether it is the smallest mini and micro watershed based. It is possible, and it needs to be done in the urban cities first. Instead of that, concretizing all our floors and all our land is not going to lead to percolation. And depending more and more on the groundwater has already happened. But that is not the ultimate solution unless you keep recharging the groundwater aquifers. Now all of this needs to be the first priority. I would appeal to the opposition parties in Karnataka at least to really sit with the people's organizations, which is going to become a people's movement, and then otherwise it will take the form similar to farmers' movement that brings down the arrogance of the electoral politicians. So please don't move towards that, and have a dialogue with the people's movements under the leadership of all of those who are here, and then take a decision. Now that due to pandemic, the Padayatra has stopped, this is the time for them to reflect upon the ground level reality and also the scientificity of development planning projects such as Mekedatu. Model of United States of America, and then we started building large dams instead of the Johad Tala lakes, and now America has demolished 1,000 dams that are decommissioned and made the rivers flow, and that is not only to save one fish of salmon, that is to save the river valleys, and based on even the economic assessment and appraisals of costs and benefits. So they have changed their model, and we are following that Western model, which will come to an end when the rivers will be finished. We should not wait till then. We must take to alternative paradigm of land, water, forest, mineral management.